What up, family? Appreciate y'all being here. Quick shout out to today's stream sponsors FFS, Cat Nye Williams, Cha Diggy, starting us off right. They've been gifting all night. Appreciate y'all, family. Much love. Let's get into it.
Do you, sir, or should I say in 2021, did you along with Ms. Parker make money in prostitution?
No.
You done fucked up. You know that, don't you?
What you mean?
You done fucked up. You know that, don't you, right?
No.
You see what I'm saying? I'm saying you know that. You know you done fucked up, don't you?
I don't remember no. I don't remember no. I don't know. I don't know. All right.
Saying your entire career in the music business is now no longer.
Rapper's been under investigation by the LAPD for a shooting that happened here in Hollywood on November the 6th. The victim of that shooting told police that A$AP Rocky shot at him 3 to 4 times, believing that one of the bullets had grazed the victim's left hand.
The rapper, whose real name is Rakim Mayers, is being charged with 2 felony counts of assault with a semi-automatic firearm during an argument and fired twice. The victim suffered a grazed wound to his left hand.
33-year-old Rakim Mayers was charged in connection with a shooting that occurred in Hollywood last November. It's when an argument escalated, with Mayers allegedly firing a handgun at the victim, who had minor injuries.
That's why they made an arrest. And this morning, the scene, actually, the SWAT team was there. His street was closed. They used a battering ram to knock down his front gate.
Oh, I didn't realize that. They used a battering ram?
Yeah.
A$AP sent up, what you said? What did they find in the vehicle?
I'm so sorry. I can't make any comments about it.
Right.
Feel free to contact us. As soon as I'm able to speak about it, I'm happy to, but I just can't right now.
Let me ask.
What's what up, fam? We back at it. Back where we left off. What's this, day 8? Appreciate y'all being here. We about to get into it. You know, you dig. Shout out to today's stream sponsors one more again before we get started. Y'all show them some love and what? Drop some slime brellas in this motherfucker. We got them slime brellas back on deck. Know what I'm talking about? Oh yeah. So also before we get started, let me show some love. Put some respect on his name. Y'all shout out to Ronnie O'Neal for helping us get back on deck.
The evidence is going to show that law enforcement and this administration wanted to make me look like a menace to society. But the evidence is going to show that anything that I may have said, they exacerbated it. The evidence is going to show. 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 I look alone, but I am backed by a mighty God. And the evidence is going to prove to you that this whole entire case has been tampered with and fabricated. Before it's all said and done. Mark my words. That's what the evidence is going to show.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. I'm just going to rewind for a few questions just to reset the context. You can start talking about the surveillance videos, okay?
Okay.
All right. So the sequence surveillance video overlaps video from 1616 East Del Mar with video and audio from 6200 Hollywood Boulevard, correct?
Correct.
All right. And you agree that 1616 East Del Mar video has no sound?
Correct.
But the video from 6200 Hollywood Boulevard does.
That's correct.
So you...
Oh Oh yeah, hold on. Before we get into that, quick shout out to everybody in the building. Chan My Black is golden. The evidence is going to show. Jazzy T, what up, family? I see you. Tech Clouds, what up, though? Appreciate y'all joining. Survivor Speaks in the building, what up, though? Late Night Baking with Mookie. Chot Diggy, appreciate y'all, family. Laugh always, have fun. Lynn Hill, all that. Appreciate y'all. Let's get it.
Overlap the videos from each location trying to show when the shot would have occurred during the 1616 East Delmar video.
Correct.
Of course, we agree on this already. If your overlap is off even by a fraction of a second, the shot would not have occurred during the precise moment shown on the overlap 1616 East Delmar video.
That's correct.
And in order to determine when the overlap overdrawn. In order to determine when to overlap the shot heard on the 6200 Hollywood Boulevard video with the 1616 East Delmar video, you need to first figure out when that shot took place in relation to the 1616 East Delmar video.
Yes.
So you use a visual benchmark for both videos, something that you could see in the surveillance videos from 1616 East Delmar and 6200 Hollywood Boulevard.
Correct.
And that was the floodlight turning on.
Yes.
And you saw the floodlight turning on in camera 2, and just to be clear what camera 2 is file. The file number, I think based on these filings, was file 18221-716 from 6200 Hollywood Boulevard at 10:17 and 26 seconds.
I believe that's correct.
Now, but even seeing that floodlight in both videos, there would have been only two ways to use that benchmark to determine when to overlap the 1616 East Delmar video and the 6200 Hollywood Boulevard video at the early moment when the shot would have occurred in the 1616 East Delmar video, correct?
I'm sorry, sir.
Yeah, I got to do that one again.
I didn't understand.
There's a lot of words in that question, but I'm going to try.
Yes.
We still don't know how to ask it. But even seeing that floodlight in both videos, the one we just discussed, that benchmark, that floodlight going on, right? Okay.
Is that yes? Yes, I'm sorry.
But even seeing that floodlight in both videos, there would have only been two ways to use that benchmark, the floodlight, to determine when to overlap the 1616 East Delmar video and the 6200 Hollywood Boulevard videos at the earlier moment when the shot would have occurred on the East Delmar video.
I'm sorry, I think you lost me, sir.
So, the two videos, again, the benchmark for that was the floodlight.
Correct. One of the benchmarks, yes.
What did you use to determine when to overlap the 1616 East Delmar video and the 6200 Hollywood Boulevard video?
Again, it was just the totality of the videos, looking at the sequence of the floodlight, the individuals on the video running from one point of the camera to the other, just kind of looking at it in sequence over and over. Everything seemed to coincide with the sound from the 6200 camera.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's two methods, and tell me if you use one of these two. One would have been to rewind both videos simultaneously to the exact moment, right? Or, let me rephrase that, to rewind both videos, 6200, 1616, simultaneously the exact amount, 30 seconds, for example, right? Would that be one way?
That would be one way. I mean, anticipating that each individual camera system sometimes has its own time. It doesn't mean they're all automatically set at the first exact second or coincide with each other. But again, roughly looking at the light with the individual persons on those cameras, watching them in sequence, it's the best way I can explain it to you.
Okay. And the other way would have been to determine how much actual time passed on the 6200 Hollywood Boulevard video between the floodlight and the shot heard, and then use that same actual amount of time to rewind the 1616 East Delmar video, right?
Yes, roughly.
Which of those two methodologies did you use?
I think we explored every option, just to try to gauge the best possible, but I can't tell you which one I believe was more accurate than the other. Again, I just looked at the totality of all these things to see that they coincided.
Well, my question really more is, which one did you use? How did you do it?
I mean, I looked at both, but I think the one that stood out more to me was the light, the floodlight.
I understand that, but I'm saying, did you rewind both videos, the 6200 and the 1616, to the exact same amount?
I don't recall whether we were rewinding to the exact second, but to the point where it coincided with the sound. And so, yes, I mean, to answer your question directly, roughly, yes, about the same time.
Oh, there was been once.
Yo, big shout out to Peter Ortiz. Y'all show him some love and drop some of the boom emojis in the chat. Appreciate the love, family. Y'all show Peter Ortiz some love for the 5 gifted. Let me drop a bomb for you. Appreciate the support, family.
Okay. I'm going to play you a couple of clips. I'm not sure that we're ready, but when creating the sequenced surveillance video, it wasn't an exact science, right?
No.
Okay. Meaning the overlapping was done by hand, right?
Correct.
In fact, I think that 55 seconds into the sequence surveillance video, you could see that little cursor being moved by hand in the upper right corner. Did you see that?
I don't recall that.
All right, we'll show you that.
Sure.
Which exhibit is this?
Is this People's 15 or we're using our own? This is People's 15 already. We'll use this one for this.
You're using 15 was the thumb drive. We downloaded it.
Okay, just switch it then. Just use it.
I'm just saying it's 15. That's fine. We downloaded it.
We're using 15 now?
Same one. We're using.
Anyway, once we get all this figured.
Shout out to the new members. Now y'all got access to the Relly Rug and the Relly Jelly.
At 55 seconds on that video, you're going to see hopefully. See if you can look in the upper right hand corner and you can see that little cursor being moved by hand. The upper right hand corner at 55 seconds.
Okay.
See that?
Laugh, always have fun. I think you overdoing it with the emojis because the YouTube keep blocking it. That's a little bit too many. Might want to keep it under 10, please. Thank you. Unless you're using membership emojis, I think you could use as many of those as it lets you.
See the cursor?
I do.
Okay. See those balls over there, those little round things? Did you see it moving around?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that means obviously it's being moved by hand, by someone.
That would give me an indication that it is.
Right. And as you said, you saw the floodlight turn on in camera 2, which again we identified as file 18221. 1716 from 6200 Hollywood Boulevard at 10:17:26.
Okay.
And you heard the first shot on camera 2, different file number, which is 18220214, at an earlier moment, which you believe to be 30 seconds earlier based on the timestamps. Correct?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand your question. The two shots at different.
No. The first shot on camera 2, which was filed, well, 18220214. That's the name of the file number that I have to identify.
Okay.
You heard the first shot on camera 2 at an earlier moment, which you believe to be.
Another big shout out to Peter Ortiz and the channel members, supporters. Peter Ortiz upgraded to silver membership. Welcome to the Silver Fam. Appreciate you, family. Shout out to Peter Ortiz for joining the Silver Fam. Y'all show him some love, drop him some umbrellas and all that good stuff. Hey, Laugh, it's all good. Just letting you know, that's what they said. I'm just the messenger. All right, appreciate y'all, family. Let's get it.
30 seconds earlier based on the timestamps, right?
Correct.
So you figured the first shot would have occurred 30 seconds earlier in that same surveillance video in actual time.
Sir, I'm not understanding your question.
Did you, well, you agree that you said you went back 30 seconds, or 30 seconds earlier is when you heard that first shot, right?
Again, in comparison to the videos, as far as what the times they reflect.
Oh.
Yes.
And that's 30 seconds earlier than what the first what camera 2 showed.
Correct.
All right. And you use that same exact amount of time, 30 seconds, to go back on the 1616 Vista Del Mar video.
I believe so.
You'd agree if the floodlight turned on less than 30 seconds in actual time, after the shot was heard on the 6200 Hollywood Boulevard video, that means you went back too far on the Vista Del Mar video, right? If the floodlight turned on less than 30 seconds.
Again, sir, this is, I mean, it wasn't an exact science.
I'm not criticizing.
So I'm not sure about the exact seconds that you're pointing out.
Well, again, you just
roughly, yes.
Right, what I'm saying is you just said you went back 30 seconds early based on the timestamps and what you observed.
Correct, just roughly within that period.
And, right. So my question was, and again, I'm not criticizing your methodology, I'm just asking. If the floodlight turned on less than 30 seconds in actual time after the shot was heard on the 6200 Hollywood Boulevard video, that means that if you went back 30 seconds, that would be a little too far, right?
Could be, yes.
Okay. With regard to the 6200 Hollywood Boulevard video, you extracted 3 sets of videos from 3 different cameras maintained by the residents at that location.
Correct, that was what was provided.
And your understanding, those cameras run in actual time.
Yes, live.
But each camera, I think we've already discussed this last time we were here the other day. In fact, each camera is off from actual time by a different amount, between 2 to 3 minutes.
I'm not sure if it's that camera that was off.
Check as it mistakes the stipulation.
What's the stipulation? Reread it.
Equals 35, remember?
Right, go over it with Mr. Siegel.
You want to
They want to approach, we do that.
Right, you're going to need to clarify something. You're on. All right, this does not need to be on the record. Come on up.
They just start off and go straight to break, huh? What's that about? Let me skip past some of that. Appreciate y'all being here with me, family. Got that fast forward action coming. Here we go. Right back in there.
So, right, we don't want to have that. Okay, let's do this. just play these a few videos for you, okay?
Okay.
The first video, and this is again, I want to show you about the timing. This is camera 1, which is file 18220-237. You hear the first shot at 10:15:53. Tell me if you agree with that. Go ahead.
That's correct.
Right, okay. That's it. So you heard the first shot on that camera at 10:15:53.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now I'm going to play camera 2, which I'm going to identify again by file number, which is 18220214. And you hear the same first shot just over a minute later on this camera at 10:16:56. Tell me if you agree with that after this.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that was 10:16:56 on that camera, which is over a minute later from the first camera.
Correct.
All right. And on the third camera, which is file 1A221240, you hear, hold on a second, right? You hear that same first shot 4 seconds after that last video at 10:17 on the dot. Tell me if you agree.
Yes, I do.
Okay. So a reason that the times would be off from each other is because at least 2 of the clocks are running faster than the other.
That could be a reason. Yes, independent systems.
And a reason that a timestamp on a camera would be faster than actual time is because the clock for that camera would be running faster than actual time.
Yes, sir. Just like here in the courtroom.
Good example. Just like here in the court. With that in mind, let's look at one more. Let's look at video from camera 2 just before the flow light goes off. And now I think it's the defense exhibit we're going to show, right?
DD.
DD, Your Honor. This is from 6200 Hollywood Boulevard. Again, I read the file number. I'll read it again. It's 18221716. The first, before you play, hold on a second. The first timestamp shown on this camera is 10:17:17.
That's correct.
Okay. And the video itself is at 0 seconds because, hold on a second. I just want to make sure we're in the same video here. We do have, in fact, the same video. Okay.
Here we go again with the underwater footage.
So I think you just agreed the video itself is at 0 seconds because it has not started yet, correct, sir?
That's correct.
10:17:17.
Yes, sir. On the clock, lower clock.
All right, let's play the video until the floodlight is on. 9 seconds later at 10:17:26. Go ahead, please. Okay, you see that?
Yes.
Floodlight on?
Correct.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Okay. And it says 10:17:26.
It does.
And how many seconds faster than, how many seconds later from 10:17:17 is that?
9 seconds.
9 seconds. Yeah, how many seconds right off the clock?
8.
So that's something's wrong there, right?
Yes, I mean,
Okay.
whether or not it would stop right at 8 between 9, I don't know how to explain it.
Well, okay. The clock says, Chad. So it's 7 p.m.
No one in the building. What's good, family? I see you. Appreciate you joining.
10:17:26 seconds, which is 9 seconds after 10:17:17 seconds. but the video only ran 8 seconds. You can see that, correct? And the floodlight isn't back on, right?
That's correct.
All right. So this would indicate, at least here, that the video is about 1 second past here.
Could be within 1 second, correct?
Yeah. And given that, it's fair to say that the shot heard on 1616 East Del Mar should have been about a second later than shown in the sequence surveillance video, right?
It's certainly not my area of expertise as far as the way sound travels and light travels. I know they travel at different speeds, but that would be within my expertise. But that's correct.
Okay, that's correct. Okay. You put this together, the sequence surveillance video, right?
No.
Who did?
I believe it was somebody in the district attorney's office.
Okay. Off of this stuff now. Just 2 more things, and we're done. Now you can. You earlier testified about the police officers who arrived at the scene on November 6th, 2021. Remember those 7 officers?
Yes, I do.
They were there for approximately 20 minutes, more or less?
I think more or less.
20 minutes, yes. Okay. And one last thing. You submitted, I guess, in January of 2024, evidence to the ballistics lab for testing in this case, right?
Thereabouts, yes.
And the testing was done, oh, I'm sorry, it was done it was submitted in December of 2023, right?
I believe that's correct.
I could just refresh.
I believe when the return came back, it was a different date than when it was submitted.
You're right. Just take a look, make sure we're on the same page here.
Yes, sir.
So that report was, I guess, finalized in January 8th, 2024.
That's correct.
And that was given back to you, this report?
Yes, it was submitted to myself and one of my partners.
But yet, that report was not given to the district attorney until about 2 weeks ago, for the first time, correct?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Over a year since the report was given back to you or one of your partners.
Correct, that's my understanding, yes, sir. I believe it had been given, but I could be in error. Correct.
Well, obviously, the district attorney represented that they got it the first time 2 weeks ago.
Correct.
The DA, was the DA even informed of its existence, do you know?
I'm sorry, what point?
Yeah, at this point, it's going to be a 3-2 court stack.
That's it. Okay, thank you for your time.
Sir, motion to strike whatever answer was given. I don't know, was there an answer?
I don't think you gave an answer.
The question is stricken, and if there was an answer, that's stricken as well.
So the last question, correct?
The last question? Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Zolman, do you have anything?
I do, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
I need to open up my sound bar. Shoot, I wanted to drop some sounds for that one. That was pretty neat.
Detective, when you were testifying, I believe that was on Tuesday, you were asked questions about the latent fingerprint examination of the prior cartridge cases in this case. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And as a detective, you said you have almost 30 years of experience as a police officer, correct?
Just passed my 29th anniversary. Yes.
Okay. If I round you up 1 year, we call it just approximately 30 years.
I appreciate it.
Fair? Okay. Do you have an understanding of what could potentially impact whether or not you would find a fingerprint on any kind of object?
Yes.
What are some of the factors that you're aware of?
Time in which it was processed, the exposure to the elements, rain, water, foot traffic, cars, depending on where it's at, wind, other weather events. I mean, anything, other people going through the area or touching vehicles. I mean, it just depends on where the item is going to be processed, with conditions it's found in, and how long it's exposed to those conditions.
What about temperature? Is that one of the things that would be potentially affected?
Yes.
Objection to leading.
Would exposure of a fingerprint to something of high temperature potentially impact whether or not it's able to be located later?
I think so.
You also said that you've had extensive experience firing firearms, throughout your law enforcement career, correct?
Yes.
When a gun discharges a fired cartridge casing, when it first comes out of the gun, is it hot?
Yes, on a semi-automatic specifically, when it ejects the cartridges, just from personal experience, I've had them land on me. When we go to the police academy to shoot a qualified, we're on a line. So oftentimes the casings are ejected as the next person next to you is firing. So I've many times felt that the casing land in my neck or in my collar, and they're hot.
In your nearly 30 years of experience, 29 years of experience as a police officer, can you personally recall any cases of yours where fingerprints were developed from a fired cartridge case?
None that I can think of.
And you said you've worked on homicide cases, correct?
Yes, sir.
A fair number of those involve firearms?
A good majority, yes.
Can you give the jury any idea of how many cases you think you've handled over your career?
I mean, between homicide cases or cases involving firearms, as the lead investigator or assisting in investigations, probably to date, I would say probably in excess of 2,000 cases I've assisted or led.
You were asked similar questions about DNA evidence potentially on the fired cartridge case, correct?
Yes.
And based on your background and experience, do you have any idea of things that could impact whether or not DNA is present on an item?
I mean, along the same lines as fingerprints, exposure to the elements, contamination, anything from human contamination, vehicle, wherever it's exposed to, weather.
Could temperature also potentially impact it as well?
Yes.
In your almost 30 years experience as a police officer, can you personally recall any cases where DNA was developed on a fired cartridge case in one of your cases?
Not that I can think of.
After the cartridge cases are booked, in your experience as a police officer, can they be made available to the defense if the defense wants to conduct their own independent testing?
Yes.
In this
Vernicia, what's good, family?
case, could the defense have done their own DNA testing?
Yes.
On cross-examination, you were specifically asked if you observed any video of Mr. Efron returning to the crime scene the night of this incident. Was there any video in this case that you ever had possession of that was captured after 11:20 p.m., capturing specifically that intersection of Vista Del Mar and Selma?
No.
I want you to assume, for purposes of a hypothetical, that victim in a case returns to a crime scene at 11:45 p.m. Would the video that you recovered that only goes to 11:20, would that video have shown that person's presence at the scene?
No, it would not.
You were also asked about Mr. Efron's girlfriend returning to the scene. Assume the same hypothetical that she came back with that individual at 11:20. Would the video that you collected in this case, would it even show her?
At 11:20?
Sorry, if she returned with Mr. Efron at 11:45. The video that only goes up to 11:20 showed her.
No.
Okay.
Objection, Your Honor. This is the fact, not evidence. It would just mean that they didn't have
Overruled.
the video.
No speaking objections. Overruled.
Okay. On cross-examination.
No, stop. No editorializing by anybody. Ask another question, Mr. Pizzolo.
Just one moment, Your Honor, trying to organize this. In cross-examination, Mr. Tacopina asked you questions about your prior testimony at the preliminary hearing, and specifically read you a passage regarding whether or not you asked Mr. Efron if he had firearms back in November of 2021. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. In your
Did you ask him if he got that 9mm?
testimony prior to that, were you asked,
page 9?
Page 269,
Which
line
volume?
5.
Which volume?
Volume 2, Your Honor.
2?
2, yes.
Repeat the page, please.
269. I'm going to first go 5 to 11, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I apologize for interrupting the state earlier, but the state can talk the ears off a donkey. This continued filibustering has got to stop.
Can you read the question back?
On cross-examination, Mr. Tacopina asked you questions about your prior testimony of the preliminary hearing and specifically read you a passage regarding whether or not you asked Mr. Efron if he had firearms back in November of 2021. Do you recall that? Answer, yes. Question, your testimony prior to that, were you asked? And do you have a page number?
All right, what was the next question you were going to ask?
As you read the question he was asked at line 5, and go through his answer.
That's not a prior inconsistent statement from what he said. Your question was, did he ask Efron? That's not what this question asked.
Now, I wasn't offering as a prior inconsistent statement.
Why don't you just ask the same question that you asked the preliminary hearing?
Did you ever look to see what firearms were registered to Mr. Efron?
Yes.
At the time of the incident in November of 2021?
Yes.
And what did you discover when you searched for any guns that would be registered to him at that time?
We didn't find any firearms registered to Mr. Efron.
Okay.
Get your ready jelly now. We got grape, orange marmalade,
okay,
and now in fruit punch.
In your nearly 30 years of experience in law enforcement, have you ever conducted an interview with a significant witness in a case and either not recorded your interview or not taken notes and not written a report?
No, not that I recall ever doing that.
As an investigator, can you tell the jury why you either record your interviews or take notes and then write a report immediately following your interviews?
I like to record because it's 100% accurate. The reports are done generally for our purposes as a summary, kind of as a refresher, to identify key points that were made during the interview. But again, my preference has always been to record because that's always 100% accurate.
Yeah, right. Then you gonna come up here and lie on the stand. Shout out to no one. He said, that me? That me? Hell yeah. Shout out to Noah with the new emoji. I'm making new ones for all y'all, so y'all just be patient for the ones who ain't got one yet. I got you.
Did you ever interview a witness and not record your interview, or not write a report or not take any notes of that interview in your experience as an investigator?
Objection or irrelevance, whether you would or would not.
Make an offer of proof. Well, but the first question is a significant witness. Now you're asking any witness.
Okay.
So, any witness, that question's irrelevant. The answer would be irrelevant.
Sure. Imagine a scenario where you interviewed somebody months prior. Hypothetically, you did not record this interview, you did not write a report, and you did not take any notes. Then months later, you go back and try to summarize what that witness told you. Is that something that and that witness is a significant witness in your case that you're investigating? Is that something that a trained police officer such as yourself would ever do?
Objection, Your Honor, cold speculation.
No.
Why not?
I mean, it's just not accurate. Again, my preference would be to record it, just so it's 100% accurate to go off that for any kind of summary.
Okay, in addition to going off of the summary, if you record your interviews in a case, are those also given to the district attorney?
Yes.
Would those also be given to the defense?
Yes, never.
Would anyone involved in the case then have the opportunity to hear verbatim what questions you asked and what the answers were that were given?
Correct.
What up, Prentice Jones?
Likewise, if you record your interviews, you said after you conduct an interview that you will summarize your interview in a police report, correct?
Yes. Typically in a police report or as part of the case, yes.
In this case specifically, did you speak to Mr. Efron the day that you were assigned to this case?
Yes, on the November 9th, 2021, yes.
And did you record your interview with him in any way?
Yes, that was recorded, but it included myself, Detective Camacho, Detective Naffy.
Understood, but when you say it was recorded, was it an audio recording?
That was an audio recording because it was a telephonic interview.
And did the audio recording capture your voice and his voice?
It did.
Okay. When you later went back and, or not you, or when your partner, I believe you said, went back and summarized that interview, summarized it into a report, correct?
Correct.
And I believe that you testified that there were a few sentences in the report that had some inaccuracies, correct?
That is correct.
But that was inaccuracies in the report, those were not things that Mr. Efron specifically said in the report. Were those inaccuracies in the report, or were those things that Mr. Efron said to you in the report?
There were inaccuracies in the report. Summary.
Okay. I believe you were specifically asked about
I said we got them AF1s up in here.
Whether after the shooting, Mr. Efron contacted an attorney before he returned to the scene to recover the gun casings located at Selma and Vista Del Mar. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And did Mr. Efron ever make that statement to you that he did things in that order?
That is not my recollection.
If Mr. Efron testified that he first collected the cartridge cases and then he contacted an attorney, did he ever tell you anything directly contradictory to that?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Yeah. If Mr. Efron testified that he first went to the scene and collected the cartridge cases and he contacted an attorney at some point after that, did he ever say anything to you that was different from that order?
Yo, shout out to Taylor Umbridge. Y'all show her some love. Becoming a member. Welcome to the family. Dropping the black hearts. Okay, I see you. I see you with the black hearts. Y'all go sub up to Taylor Umbridge. There go a link to her channel. Appreciate you, Jazzy. Y'all go show her some love.
No.
I believe you were also asked about the line in a report in which it was written that Mr. Efron said that Hills had a knife. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Did Mr. Efron ever make that statement to you?
No.
Was that just an inaccuracy in the summary of the report?
That's correct. It was an inaccuracy.
When you were also asked if that essentially you knew that there was that inaccuracy in the report prior to your testimony today, correct?
Correct.
And you were asked if you ever went back to correct that police report, correct?
Correct.
Did you testify under oath at a prior hearing in November 2023 at the preliminary hearing to that inaccuracy?
Yes, I did.
So did you tell the court, the DA, and the defense that that line in your report that Hills had a knife was not correct?
That's correct.
Has Mr. Efron ever identified anybody else other than Mr. Phillips, who we've been calling ASAP 12B, as the person with the knife outside of the parking lot?
No.
On cross-examination, a little bit on Tuesday and into today, I believe mostly on Tuesday, you were asked about whether you reviewed individual videos, and based upon those individual videos, you could tell certain characteristics about the gun. Do you recall that?
Yes.
When you review evidence to determine something like whether a gun is operable, if you have multiple videos, do you view those videos individually to make that determination, or do you view them collectively to make that determination?
Collectively, obviously. Look at them individually, look at them as a whole, and obviously try to put them in sequence with events collectively.
Okay. And I believe you said when you reviewed the video from the parking structure, that individual video, you couldn't say it was an operable gun, correct?
Correct.
But when you review the video collectively, is it your belief that the gun that we see in the defendant's hand was operable?
Objectionable, Lee.
It is.
When you viewed the videos collectively, what was your opinion regarding whether the gun was operational?
That it was an operational firearm.
How did you come to that determination?
I mean, in the totality of the circumstances, the first view of the weapon, followed by the second view, the reaction to the incident as the four individuals in the distance in the camera are scrambling, as you can see that something's going on, in conjunction with the sounds of the shots heard from the other camera, and then the fluidity of everybody running through the cameras over to El Centro. That along the lines with the information provided by Mr. Efron, that was my opinion that it was an operable firearm and that shots had been fired.
Did you see if he fired any shots, Mr. Efron?
You reviewed the sequenced surveillance video. Were you reviewing whether or not they were sequenced? What were you using to determine whether they were sequenced accurately?
The totality, just the movements of the individuals in the cameras, again, along with pieces of lights, but a lot of it has to do just with the sequence of events, walking around from one side to the next, and just kind of following the individuals in the video, and obviously in conjunction with the sound. So it sounds more difficult than it is, but it's just kind of collectively putting it all together and watching it.
Okay, from what you were just describing, it sounds like you were using audio and visual cues in the videos, correct?
Yes.
Did you specifically use the timestamps in order to determine if they were sequenced correctly?
No, not exactly. Obviously, I understand from collecting a lot of videos, in a lot of cases that individual surveillance cameras systems are all different, and they all can be off by seconds, hours, depending on how they're maintained and kept and updated. So again, a lot of it has to do with just kind of finding certain markers within whatever crime, whatever we're looking for at the time, to try to kind of establish what happened when you're dealing with more than one camera that captures different points of view from different areas.
Okay. When you collect a video in your cases and you're checking the timestamps for accuracy, are you checking it down to the fraction of a second?
I mean, it's captured, and we take that into account and try to determine how far off it may have been. Again, the other factors include that we can't control the maintenance of it, how it's been updated, when it's been serviced.
But to the fraction of a second, that's what you're checking, or are you checking minutes, hours, things like that?
Generally checking minutes, hours, and events captured that coincide with other markers that we do have, whether it's from another camera or a witness or something else that kind of puts us in that right time frame that we're looking for.
As to the videos from the residents on Del Mar, the one that had the audio, council kept using the word rewind. Were those physical tapes that you or your partners collected, or was that digital video?
The camera from 6200 residential is all digital.
Were any of the surveillance cameras in this case captured on manual analog tape, or were they all digital recording?
Now they all have been computer digital.
Okay. At the beginning of his questions of you, Mr. Takapina asked you about whether or not you had spoken to 12E. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Do you know for a fact that 12E, to this day, still refuses to be interviewed by law enforcement?
Objection, that assumes a fact, not supposed to be.
No speaking objections. It's the objection sustained. Ask another question.
To this day, have you been able to interview 12E?
No.
Have you ever been present when 12E was asked if he would agree to an interview?
Yes.
And what was his answer when asked if he would agree to an interview by law enforcement?
No.
Similarly, you were asked about whether or not you talked to Mr. Levin. Did you have any indication that before January 20th of 2025, the day before jury selection, that Mr. Levin had any role in this case?
No, not any direct role, no.
Once you were made aware of that he could possibly have anything to say, did you take any efforts to try to interview him or talk to him?
Yes.
Were you successful in those efforts?
No.
Have you been present when Mr. Levin was also present and asked if he would specifically agree to be interviewed by law enforcement?
Yes.
And what was his answer to that question?
No.
As to both 12E and Mr. Levin, did those questions as to whether or not they would agree to an interview with law enforcement, did those occur in this courtroom?
Yes.
Did you or your partners attempt to speak to Mr. Mayers to defend?
Yes.
And were you or your partners successful in that effort?
No.
All right, Your Honor, I don't have anything.
Thank you.
Yes, just briefly, Mark. Because we're almost done. You asked a bunch of questions by Mr. Sloan just now about a host of inaccuracies on fairly significant issues in your reports.
The question is argumentative in itself. It's statement of access, not an evidence.
Okay. I agree.
Just a minute. Just a minute.
Mark?
I don't believe that the question is argumentative.
You assume that's not an evidence as well, Your Honor. And the question you read back.
Read the question back, please.
Detective, we're almost done. You were asked a bunch of questions by Mr. Preslovic just now about a host of inaccuracies on fairly significant issues in your reports.
What's vague?
Okay. You asked questions about, let's generalize it first, inaccuracies in police reports, right?
Correct.
Okay. One of those, for example, were who had the knife, right?
Yes.
That's a significant issue, isn't it?
Yes, in the report, yes.
One was whether Mr. Efron was instructed by his attorney to go back to the scene and pick up the shell casings or not. That's a significant issue, isn't it?
Correct.
And those two issues in the reports.
Shout out to Peter Ortiz. Y'all go crazy with the slime umbrella. Spam the chat. We got a new stream sponsor up in here. Shout out to Peter Ortiz with the $100 donation. Appreciate you, family. Y'all show him some love. Go crazy in the chat. Drop the happy face with the money tongue. Drop some umbrella, some slime umbrella, some slime, some boom, boom, boom emojis, all that. Show him some love. Appreciate you, family.
Were enacted, correct, according to you?
Yes.
And those could have been corrected at some point, right?
Yes, they could.
They never were they?
I mean, as far as generating a new report, other than what's been explained in court, no.
Right. So the reports today are still inaccurate on those issues.
Correct.
You were asked about one other thing. Let's start with this. 12. You were asked if you would agree to interview. If 12 would agree to be interviewed by you, and you said he said no, he wouldn't. Are you referring to correct, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Are you referring to 2 weeks ago in court here?
Yes.
Is that the first time you tried to interview him?
Yes.
So, in January of 2025 is the first time you tried to interview 12B about an incident that occurred in November 6th of 2021, correct?
Correct. Me personally, yes.
How about anyone else from your police department?
Yes. No, that would be the first one, correct.
Now, you were then asked questions about whether the firearm was operational. Remember those questions just now?
Yes, sir.
You testified already on cross-examination that the video from the garage, because you can't indicate if that's an operational firearm or not, correct?
Correct.
You testified on Tuesday that the video from 1616 Visa Del Mar, that from that video you said, that video alone there's no evidence of a shooting, correct?
That video alone, no.
Correct. But then you said the totality of the circumstances lead you to believe that the firearm was operational. Remember just now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the totality of the circumstances relative to testimony.
The physical evidence, the video, collectively, yes.
Well, the video, you just said both videos don't add to the fact that it's operational or not.
Collectively, as a whole, not the two that you just cited, but in the entirety of all the videos involved, yes.
Well, which video shows you the firearm was operational? Which video?
Sir, as you put it together with the sound, with the sequence of events, along with the physical evidence and the statement from Mr. Efron, that is just my opinion that it is operational, and that's why I believe it.
Well, take out Mr. Efron for 1 second, because he's the one who recovered shell casings, right?
Yes.
And he's the one who gives you the narrative on that video that you can't tell what happened, the 1616.
Correct. I mean, as he provides narrative of the sequence of events, the initial encounter, the gun that was displayed to him, what he believed to be a gun.
All right.
Whether it's operational or not at that point, I can't tell you. But the sequence of event as they evolved to Selma and Vista Del Mar, the cameras there, the incident that took place as far as what I can describe as a scramble during some, obviously, the events that occurred there that Mr. Efron described as being shot at was consistent in conjunction with the audio from the cameras. Again, this is just what I'm looking at when I'm trying to rationalize and give my opinion as to why I believe it is a gun that was fired.
I'm sorry, you're done?
Yes, sir.
Take Mr. Efron out of the equation for a second.
Okay.
Take him out of the equation. You don't have Mr. Efron. And therefore, his shell cases that he remembered, which we talked about the issues with that on Tuesday. Without Mr. Efron and his narrative, quote-unquote version of events. With those two videos that you said independently, you cannot tell if it's an operable firearm. And the second video you said you can't see if there is a firearm.
It's an improper hypothetical which relies on evidence.
The answer would be ignores evidence. Objection sustained.
You want to use that to respond?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Taking something out of the equation then makes the hypothetical irrelevant. So ask another question.
Is your conclusion based on the fact that Relly's narrative is truthful?
It is consistent up to the point of what he describes occurred, based on what I've been able to see in connection with the physical evidence that has been provided.
So,
see how they be trying to mix words. He didn't ask you that. He asked you, did you believe it's truthful? Like, answer the question.
So let me break it down this way. Video 1 alone, you don't know if the gun is operable.
Correct.
Video 2, that's 16 pieces of more. So what? You don't even know if there's a gun based on the video.
Specifically, just looking at that, not looking at anything else, no.
Okay. You then hear sounds that appear to be a gunshot, right?
Correct.
Aside from the gun, what else do make those sounds? An operable gun, I should say.
The sound that I heard off that camera, I mean, a firearm, some kind of replica firearm potentially, but distinct sound of the firearm. Again, my belief it was a firearm.
Right. Thank you.
Ms. Pozomic, anything?
Would you agree that you don't need Mr. Efron's truthful testimony in order to determine that a shooting occurred at that location?
Check out.
The question was asked.
It's a different question. He's asking a different question.
Can I get a question in your eye, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Would you agree you don't need Mr. Efron's truthful testimony in order to determine that a shooting occurred at that location?
Right, so taking him out of the equation. That's number one. Number two, it's leading. It's leading us from leading.
Yeah, the court's ruling, we're getting more speaking objections.
Stating my words.
So to not move around other speech.
Read the question again.
Would you agree you don't need Mr. Efron's truthful testimony in order to determine that a shooting occurred at that location?
It would be a proper question if the question ended with occurred. But when you say at that location, then I believe that calls for speculation.
Would you agree you don't need Mr. Efron's truthful testimony to establish a shooting occurred?
Yes.
I don't have any answer.
I do now. So, without Mr. Efron's truthful testimony, what leads you to believe a shooting without Mr. Efron's truthful testimony? So I guess he's now out of the equation. What leads you to believe? What would lead you to believe a shooting occurred?
Again, just looking at the video, the first incident where guns displayed, he obviously falls through with a scramble, as you can best describe.
That's not.
Yes, sir.
He needs to answer the questions. Ask the question.
You asked a question, let's finish.
Okay, so.
Again, it just comes down to, sir, is looking at everything in combination, even without Mr. Efron's statement. If I were an investigating officer just responding to investigate a shooting scene where maybe there was some evidence found and establishing what had occurred without a potential witness, would be to obviously look at the same video, listen to the same sound of gunfire. Again, it's just factors that would be known at the time. But it would still lead me to believe that there had been some actual shooting short of a recording witness being present. I would still believe that.
Okay. So you first cited the fact that the gun was displayed. That was the first thing you just cited, right?
Correct.
Which you already told the jury. The gun that was displayed, the only time you could see a gun in any video was the part you were out your camera.
Correct.
You already told the jury, by that video, you can't tell if it's operable, right?
Correct, because it was not fired at that point.
Well, you also said the sound could also have been made by a non-operable firearm. You just said that before.
Again, it's in the realm of possibilities.
Okay.
From what I've heard, again, based on the sound, again, this is just my opinion, my expertise, and my experience. I believe it to be a firearm.
You also heard, you were here when the police officer's body cam from the scene was played, right?
Yes, sir.
And you heard the police officer say there's no evidence of a shooting here. You heard that, right?
Yes, sir.
Right.
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Detective Flores. You can step down. Next witness.
My next witness is Mr. Ryan Willinger.
That whole witness was a waste of time. He ain't proved nothing, ain't showed nothing, sitting up there lying, just like all the rest of the cops and officers and all that stuff. Up there just a lying as always. Is this really how they been making their cases for all the history? Like, they just been lying, put people in. And y'all wonder why we run and be afraid to get arrested by police. They be like, well, if you didn't do nothing, there's nothing to worry about. Like, obviously, that's not true, because these mugs sit here and lie on you. The prosecutor will lie on you. Most of the judges, they allow it. Like the judge in the case before, she would have been letting a lot of that stuff through. Luckily, they got a better judge, but that's crazy. Well, I appreciate y'all being here, family. Y'all show some love to the stream sponsors once again. We're getting into it. I don't know what's going on with my eye. It's twisted. No.
The last witness is.
I'm giving you a very star almost afternoon hour in the court. We are certainly going to be in the court and the jury. We're looking to starting at 1:30 instead of the.
No, sorry.
All right, just let the court go forward with that.
No, 15 minutes left. Let's use it.
The evidence is going to show that anything that I may have said, they exasperate.
Just raise your right hand for us, please. Thank you. You solemnly state that the testimony you may give in the cause not that before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help God.
I do.
Would you please take a seat on the witness stand there?
Thank you.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Fadil Birima. First name Fadil. Last name Biramah.
Thank you.
Shout out to Late Night Baking with Mookie Mookie. Welcome to the Copper Fam. Well, welcome back to the Copper Fam. Appreciate you coming back. Y'all show them some love. Drop them some slime brothers.
Sir, would you tell the jury who you work for?
Yes, for the Los Angeles Police Department Forensic Science Division.
And how long have you worked for LAPD?
Just shy of 20 years.
Are you a police officer?
No.
Where do you work within LAPD?
So I'm a civilian employee. I'm a criminalist employed at the Forensic Science Division, essentially the crime lab.
Is the laboratory that you work in an accredited lab?
It is.
And what's your job title at the laboratory?
I'm a criminalist 3.
How long specifically have you been a criminalist
For 19 years, almost 20.
The entire time you've worked?
Yes.
What unit are you currently assigned to within the lab?
Within the lab, I've actually just recently been assigned to the toxicology unit. It's a very recent assignment. I've been in firearms for about the 20 years prior to that.
Okay. You say very recent. When was that transfer made?
January 13th.
Of this year?
Yes.
Okay. Your entire time before that, you said you worked in the firearm analysis unit?
Correct.
Okay. Can you give the jury just a broad idea of what your job duties entail when you worked in the firearm analysis unit?
So a criminalist in the firearms unit, we are primarily trained to perform work within the laboratory. That's where we spend most of our time. We perform the analysis of firearms and firearm-related evidence. This is the type of analysis that's commonly referred to as ballistic comparison. We call it firearm identification. In addition to this, we respond to the field in order to process crime scenes, particularly shooting scenes and officer-involved shootings are our main field obligations. We generate reports regarding these analyses and testify about them in court.
When you're specifically analyzing firearms and firearm-related components, can you give the jury an idea of what some of those items are that you're looking at?
Yes, so we are trained in the operation and structure of a wide range of different firearms. A firearm for us is a device that propels a projectile by means of combustions. So this wouldn't really include airsoft guns, things of that nature. But firearms, which actually fire live cartridges or ammunition, during the discharge process, they will actually cause marks to be impressed onto those ammunition components. So this is a large part of our responsibilities, is to perform the microscopic comparison of fired ammunition components. These can be bullets or cartridge cases, with the aim of determining what types of firearms they might be compatible with, or actually continuing to determine whether two items have been fired in the same firearm or were eliminated as having been fired in the same firearm.
Can you tell the jury about your educational background, any training or experience that you have that qualifies you to perform those functions that you just described in the lab of comparing firearms and firearm-related components?
Yes, well, entry-level criminalists have a natural chemistry, natural science background. I have a degree in biochemistry. This prepares you for most of the work in the crime lab, but to perform the analyses in the firearm analysis unit, we complete another lengthy training program. This is the firearm examiner training program. It has a duration of about 2.5 years. It includes lecture, literature review, and live fire exercises. By these means, we learn about the structure and function of ammunition. We learn to operate a wide range of different firearms. And we actually spend about an 18-month period training on microscopes in order to perform the comparison of discharged fire components. I completed that training program in 2009. I spent the following decade as a full-time firearm examiner. Each year of that period, I was tested by an outside firm in order to maintain my qualification. I am also certified by the Association of Firearm and Tool Mark Examiners. This is the premier professional organization in my field, certified in the area of firearm examination and identification. In the course of my work there, I've performed the examination of more than 3,600 items of evidence, logged more than 600 hours in the processing of crime scenes, and about 6 years ago I advanced to the position of Criminals 3. So in addition to the duties I've described, I also do training of other firearm examiners. I work on special projects and research for the firearm analysis unit.
Do you continue to attend professional organization meetings to maintain your proficiency in firearm analysis?
Yes, during that period, under our accreditation requirements, it's encouraged for us to have continuing education. So I've completed, I believe, about 575 hours of additional coursework outside of the actual department. This includes workshops and training from some of the leading professionals in my industry, as well as certain agencies such as the California Criminalistics Institute, which is operated by the California Department of Justice.
You mentioned that you were tested by an outside vendor.
Hi guys, how is everybody?
Yes.
Are those commonly called proficiency tests?
Yes.
And are they required to maintain your accreditation?
Yes, the lab is accredited, and requirements for that, we must participate in proficiency testing by approved vendors outside of our actual agency.
And are those tests graded? Those proficiency tests?
Yes, they're evaluated.
And have you successfully completed them?
Yes.
Approximately how many times do you think you've testified in court about firearm and tool mark identification?
I'd say over 60 times. I testified around 75 times in total, but that includes testifying about field work as well.
Okay. In a general sense, what was the, you were, let's start with, you were assigned as a criminalist in this case, correct?
Yes.
And what was the task that you were assigned to complete specifically related to this case?
I was tasked with the analysis of 2 ammunition components. These are cartridge cases, discharged cartridge cases, or a type of examination that we call type and caliber determination.
Your Honor, I'm going to move into a different area. Do you want me to start that? Or?
Well, it's close enough. We'll break that.
Your Honor, we put it on time for a second before you go through and come back.
Okay.
All this for what? Butter for what? All this for what? What they showing? They ain't showed nothing. The evidence is pretty trash still, if you ask me. Look like they about to go to lunch pretty soon, but it's a little more before they go to lunch. They got all these witnesses still carrying on the same. Lying and carrying on, or not even lying. It's just they evidence just don't prove nothing. It's just pointless evidence. Like, what's the purpose?
That was on the stand, and the questions involved video. And is it Duriva or Clarita? B or D? First letter of your last name?
B as in boy.
B as in boy. All right, jurors have left. What do you want right now? Your Honor, there was a question that was asked of the detective on the stand, and the questions involved video during my co-counsel's the question involved whether or not there was video that was available that would have shown the witness and his girlfriend had that given the time that was involved. Right. Now the court indicated that they showed up after the video stopped. Right. Mr. Siegel said the court sustained objection, but I believe I heard Mr. Siegel say that doesn't mean they didn't have the video. Now, if listen, right? Yeah, that's not what I said. Okay, so I would just ask again, because of my court hearings, I'm not the best reporter of this, but I just want to ask if the court reporter can check if that line is in there, because if the jury heard that, if I heard it right, and if the jury heard it, that's
repeat what you think you heard.
I thought I heard him say, in reference, that doesn't mean they didn't have the video. Meaning, in essence, that we would have had a video.
Hold on, I'm writing that doesn't mean they
didn't have the video. So, and again, maybe I heard it wrong because I don't hear right, but I mentioned it as soon as I heard it. I objected. I couldn't make a speaking objection, so we had to bring it up after the jury was gone. So I would just ask that.
So I can understand. The question was, would something, if the video stopped at 11:20, would something that occurred at 11:45 appear on the video that stopped 25 minutes earlier?
It was during one of those couple of questions involving Mr. Clement. He asked about the victim. He also asked about his girlfriend. I believe it was a question about the girlfriend in the video. And
Can you look for that? Do you, was that the question?
That wasn't the intention.
So, can you just look for those words?
All right, see everybody at 1:45.
And Mr. Breezy said, Mr. Abrahima.
Shout out to Tack Clouds in the building, gifting the membership. Y'all show her some love and drop her some slime brellas. Drop some tats in the chat. Appreciate you, family. Appreciate the support. So they going to lunch. We got that skip through time real quick. Dang, no, they still on lunch, huh? Appreciate y'all, family. So they still on lunch. It's all good. I got something for y'all real quick. Y'all check out my boy. He helped us get out. Appreciate everybody gifting. Appreciate all the sponsors, all the love. Y'all show some love to Ronnie O'Neal. We got up out that mug.
The evidence is going to show that law enforcement and this administration wanted to make me look like a menace to society. But the evidence is going to show that anything that I may have said, they exacerbated it. The evidence is going to show. 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 I look alone, but I am backed by a mighty God. And the evidence is going to prove to you that this whole entire case has been tampered with and fabricated. Before it's all said and done, mark my words. That's what the evidence is going to show.
The evidence is going to show that you didn't hit the like button. Oh dang, hold on, I didn't, my bad. I was so tuned into him, boy. He be getting me. He be getting me. Hold on, exasperated.
The evidence is going to show that anything that I may have said, they exacerbated it.
All right, I was locked in. The evidence is going to show. So yeah, for those who don't know, we was gone for a minute. We was down bad for a minute, you know what I'm saying? But yesterday we finally had our appeal and we won. So shout out to all y'all, you know what I mean? Appreciate everybody who was here with me. Shout out to everybody who stuck around. We got that up in there. And shout out to Ronnie O'Neal. The evidence is going to show that we are back monetized, family. So I appreciate all the love and support. We got to celebrate. We're going to do some celebrating tonight, family. But I had to stream early because I'm going to be ending early today. I got some plans for tonight. Hey, welcome to the fam. Chloe Albert's Revenge. What up, what up, what up? Let me see. Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Right. Dang. That's a lot of comments ago where I was at. Chloe Albert's Revenge. Welcome back to the Copper family. Appreciate you, fam. Tapping on in. You see we got them rugs and that jelly. I should try to load up the pictures because those emojis hard to see. Hey, we got a new flavor, Chloe Albert. Chloe, we got a new flavor. Let me show you. Hold on. Hold on. Let me show you. If I can make it big enough. I don't think this could go big enough. I had to pull the picture up. We got the grape jelly. We got the orange marmalade. And now we have passion fruit. Passion fruit with peaches in it. I'm gonna have to try to pull that picture up. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up. It might make the stream skip a little bit, but they on break, so I guess we got a little time. Let me see if I can pull up the actual pictures, so we can see them a little better. Give me 1 second, family. If the stream skip, don't worry, it's gonna come back on.
Do you, sir, or should I say in 2021, did you, along with Ms. Parker, make money in prostitution?
No. You done fucked up. You know that, don't you?
What you mean?
You done fucked up. You know that, don't you, right?
No.
You see what I'm saying? I'm saying you know that. You know you done fucked up, don't you?
I don't remember no. I don't know. All right.
Saving your entire career in the music business is now no longer.
Here you go, family. We got that Relly Jelly on deck. Hold on. Let me scoot it over. There you go. It's on deck. Get them while they hot. Oh, it really do got peaches on there. I was just playing. That do look like a peach back there, huh? Get your Relly Jelly out now. Let me see. Where we at? The evidence is going to show that this case is crazy. Oh, Mr. OG Knuckle Scrapes. I don't know what he was thinking over there with this case. Like, he should have known that none of that was going to hold up. Like, don't you watch Netflix? Don't you see how stuff is? Stuff ain't like it used to be, man. Especially for somebody like that. Let's see, move this. Okay, here we go. Relly Jelly, one of our stream sponsors. Shout out to the stream sponsors. I appreciate y'all, family. Cha Diggy, Cat Knot Williams, FFS, Tack Clouds, Peter Ortiz with the $100 stream sponsor drop. Appreciate you, family. Cha Diggy, appreciate the love. Appreciate the love. We getting into it. Let me see if they back yet. No, they ain't back. Oh wait, they might be back. Yeah, they is back. Okay, here we go. They back.
Yeah, well, they said
All right, we are back on the record. All parties, jurors, and counsel are present. Mr. Barema is on stand, and as well.
Thank you. So when we broke, right before we broke for lunch, you told the jurors about your background and education and training in this area. And I believe we left off, you mentioned that in this case specifically, you were asked to conduct what's called a type and caliber analysis of 2 fired cartridge cases that were...
And that's right. Shout out to Chan. Y'all show her some love. Chan, my black is golden. It's the first day of our 4-day anniversary. Y'all show some love.
That you looked at in the lab. Is that an accurate summary?
Yes.
Okay. In order to illustrate some of the topics that you're going to be discussing today, did you create a PowerPoint presentation that addresses the type of exam that you did and illustrates the various terms that are going to come up throughout this examination?
I did.
Okay. Now, I've asked to mark my next exhibit, DVD
43,
with Mr. Brima's PowerPoint presentation. Can you see it on the screen?
This
Oh, let me turn on your little screen. Let me make it easier. So you don't have to constantly turn around. Good.
Yes.
All right. Is this the presentation that you created for this case?
It is.
Let me go forward to slide number 2. Can you tell the jurors what we see on this slide?
Sure. Well, in the course of this examination, there's a few different areas of basics that will, I think, help the jury understand the fundamentals of what we're talking about, and then actually the conclusions at the end of the examination. These topics are separated on this slide. They include firearm identification, cartridge components, pistol discharge, type and caliber determination, evidence features, ghost guns, and my ultimate findings.
Okay. We go forward to start with the first topic on your list, which was firearm identification. If you would tell the jurors what generally firearm identification is.
Yes, so within forensic science, there is a large discipline called tool mark identification. So this is simply the practice of looking at marks that are caused when a harder object impacts a softer object. Sometimes those marks can actually give us information about the objects involved. Firearm identification, what most people would call ballistic comparison, is really a subset of tool mark comparison, in which that tool is actually a firearm.
You talked about different types of tool marks. Can you discuss that just a little bit more for the jury? What it is that you're looking at when you do a tool mark identification examination?
Yes. Well, the tool is simply the harder of the.
Big shout out to the sponsor of every stream, Chan My Black is Golden. Appreciate you.
Two objects in forcible contact. The reason we use that word is because this is often performed using hand tools like chisels or bolt cutters. If they're used in many different types of incidents, property crimes and such, they can leave marks on items that they've come into contact with. Those types of marks vary. There's two different general types. The first is an impression. An impression is straightforward contact between the harder and softer object under pressure. The striation includes that contact, but it also includes lateral motion. So essentially, an impression is a dent, and a striation is a microscopic scrape mark.
Okay. Can you talk to the jurors how this relates specifically to firearms?
Yes. Well, the discharge of a gun releases immense pressures. It does so quickly that we often don't think about it. The pressure you use to actually inflate a tire is maybe on the order of 35 pounds per square inch. A 9mm Luger cartridge, when it discharges, releases pressures around 35,000 pounds per square inch, or PSI. These are just immense pressures, and they slam ammunition components into the gun. And that's the forcible contact that we're talking about during a firearm identification tool mark generation.
You talked about fire ammunition components. Would a cartridge case be, or a cartridge be, one of those ammunition components?
Yes, a cartridge case is part of a live round of ammunition or a cartridge. That's one of the types of components that we examine.
Okay. If you would, I want to talk in more detail about the cartridge specifically and its components. Go on to the next slide. Would you explain to the jury the cartridge?
Yes. So a lot of times people will say to fire a gun, you load it with bullets. That's not exactly true. What you need is a round of ammunition, also known as a cartridge. The top left image there, you see an actual photograph of a few cartridges. And in the larger portion of this diagram, there's a simplistic diagram of one round of ammunition. It has a few different parts. The first part is that cartridge case. It's a brass cup that essentially holds all the other components together. Jammed into the mouth of that cartridge case is the bullet. This is the actual projectile that's going to travel from the gun towards the target. Within the cartridge, you'll see some grayish material. This is the propellant or gunpowder. And at the very rear of the cartridge is the primer. This is a small metal cup.
What part of it scrapes the knuckles?
It contains some shock-sensitive explosive. When this primer is struck by a portion of the gun, called the firing pin, it explodes, causes the powder to burn very rapidly. At this point, the cartridge sort of functions like a champagne bottle being popped. The bullet is going to leave the cartridge like the cork from a champagne bottle. The cartridge case, that brass cup, is going to remain in the firearm at least for a period of time.
Okay. Moving on to the next slide. Can you explain to the jurors the different parts that we see here in slide number 10?
Yes, slide 11.
Or sorry, 11. My apologies.
No problem. It essentially is just showing you another depiction of what we just spoke about. So here we have two live cartridges on the outside of this photograph. Each of those is ready to actually be loaded and fired.
What does that have to do with this case here? Why are we even talking about this? What up, Young Forever in the building? I see you. Appreciate you, family. Appreciate you joining.
Just inward from those, you'll see two cartridges of the same types, which I've actually pulled apart. So here you can see at the bottom, there is the cartridge case, that gold-colored round item with the writing on it that's facing us. The primer is in the center of that. The grayish black powdered material there is the propellant that's actually going to give the discharge its pressure. And at the very top of the center of the photo are two different bullets. These are typically going to be copper wrapped around a heavy lead core, and that's the projectile that travels through the barrel towards the target.
Okay. Now that we understand the components of the cartridge, I want you to explain to the jurors the discharge process, if you would. Let me get to the next slide. Can you describe for the jurors what we see here?
Right, so here we have a simplified diagram of a cartridge that's positioned within a semi-automatic pistol so that it can be fired. The cartridge is located in essentially a tube called the barrel. It holds that cartridge and it will guide the barrel bullet as it exits the gun towards the target. This cartridge is in the unfired state and it's ready to discharge.
And you said this illustration specifically is of a semi-automatic handgun, correct?
Correct.
All right, I'm going to click it, and it will show us sort of the actions or what's happening within the gun at the time the trigger is pulled and the cartridge is fired.
Look at the studio background, though, with the foam on the walls, like they in the studio, trying to portray the rap image.
Correct.
Okay. Can you describe for the jurors what the action was or what we saw in the motion on that animation?
Yes, so the first cartridge has discharged. The propellant burned and the bullet went down the barrel towards the right side of the image. At that same time, that pressure is actually going to be harnessed by the mechanism within the gun. It will cause the top of the gun, it's called the slide, to recoil, to move to the rear. This is going to use some of that energy from the first cartridge that's fired in order to prepare the gun to be fired again by a second pull of the trigger.
see the handle of the gun there?
Yes. So that's depicting what's called a magazine. This component will actually be inserted inside the grip of this type of firearm. Magazine holds rounds of ammunition, stores them within the gun until they're ready to be fired. Essentially, it works like a Pez dispenser, if you're familiar with that, without the plastic head. So it's a box, it's got a spring in the bottom, and it pushes the cartridges towards the top. When the first cartridge fires, the top of that gun reciprocates, you saw it move. This allows the gun to first remove the expended cartridge case from the chamber where a live cartridge needs to be positioned to fire a second time. It reloads.
Coming soon, Young Forever, coming soon.
That chamber with the top cartridge that's in the magazine.
No, well, we gotta make
and it also
that have them saying, I don't think you're ready for this Relly's Telly Jelly.
resets the internal mechanism of that gun. When we say that a gun is semi-automatic, that specifically means that every time you pull the trigger, one cartridge is fired. It's going to function like a Windex bottle. I can hold the trigger all day, no more ammunition is going to be expended. So that is semi-automatic, as opposed to full automatic would function like an aerosol can. I hold the trigger and it would continue firing until the source of ammunition is depleted.
When you talked about the expended cartridge, that's the piece of the cartridge case that's left in the gun after the bullet comes out for what would be essentially a fraction of a second, correct?
Yes, that's the cartridge case. That's the brass cup. It's depicted in gold color on these particular diagrams. And that is the part that will be expended and ejected from the chamber.
How does that happen? How does it eject out of the gun?
Again, this is one of the functions that the mechanism is doing when it harnesses that energy. After discharge, there's a small hook in the gun called an extractor. It's going to pull that cartridge case out of the chamber rearward from the barrel. It's going to hit another implement called the ejector. At that point, it's going to be flipped out of the gun. It essentially will appear like if you flipped a quarter as hard as you could towards your right shoulder. So that extended cartridge case will be cleared from the gun and remain in the vicinity typically.
The like button. Hit the like button and enter the ring. Relly's Crazy Fashion Collection. Set includes wrinkled white tee, sweat marks, black jacket with uneven collar, and a scowl mask or a pooch shiesty. Pants and shoes optional, but they come with the gel slides, the orange ones.
Is that action that you just described consistent among all semi-automatic firearms?
Yes, to fire a semi-automatic gun, such as depicted here, more than once, you will have to clear the chamber of that expended cartridge case. It's a necessity to fire multiple.
We've covered this a couple of times, so if you would just briefly talk about what the distinction between that action would be versus a revolver.
Super chats are back on. They should be back active, family. Appreciate y'all.
So a revolver uses a different mechanism. You may have seen these in Western type movies. Rather than having a magazine and a single chamber, there's a part called a cylinder. This is a cylindrical component that can be loaded with a number of cartridges. That component will then be rotated, bringing each cartridge in line with the barrel one by one, so that each can be fired. After that cartridge is fired, the cartridge case in a revolver will remain in the chamber of that cylinder until it is manually extracted and ejected from the gun.
Okay. We move on to the barrel of the gun. When you talk about what happens in the barrel when the gun is discharged.
Right. So this.
Oh, snap! Super chat is MIA, huh? Oh, I might have to reset it. I might gotta reapply for that part. It might be a different setting.
Is the portion of the gun that's most interesting to a firearm examiner during discharge. So I just enlarged that tube, the barrel. The rear part, you can see it's specifically made to accept that cartridge. That's the chamber. The entire device runs off of pressure. So the rear of that barrel has to be closed off. This will be accomplished by a surface that's called the breech face. It's illustrated here in that bluish green color. In the center of that breech face, there is a hole or a channel that allows the firing pin to protrude and strike the cartridge and initiate the discharge.
Now, specifically with the examination you did in this case, would you agree that a lot of the information that you were looking at comes from that area around where the breech face, the aperture, and the firing pin are?
Yes, a great deal of the information for cartridge cases in general, and in this examination in particular, will come from that portion of the firearm.
Because it's important to this examination, would you just highlight with the pointer exactly where those three different features are? The breech face, the aperture, and the firing pin?
Sure. So the breech face is going to be the forward surface of this blue block. That's simplified for the purposes of the diagram. You'll see this channel that's meant to depict an opening in this solid breech face. The very opening forward portion of that channel is called the firing pin aperture. It's just the name we use for that hole, the opening. And depicted in orange, this simple cylinder.
All right, family. Yeah, I had to turn the settings back on, so you might have to refresh your browser, but they should be working now for the super chats. Appreciate you, Chloe, for pointing that out.
Cylindrical implement is the firing pin that will be propelled forward, strike the primer, and initiate discharge.
You said in your examination in this case, you looked at two of those fired cartridge cases, those brass cups, as you talked about, correct?
Correct.
You did not specifically evaluate any actual guns in your examination in this case, correct?
Correct.
So how is it that you were able to see any of the information that would come from the gun, meaning the breech face, the firing pin, or the aperture, if you didn't have a gun and all you had was that brass piece that was ejected from the gun?
Right. So again, this is an effect of those immense pressures and forces that are involved in discharge. Someone about my size stepped on a soda can. I'm exerting, I believe it's about 5 pounds per square inch. You can imagine that surface of the street could then cause dents into that soda can. Here we're talking about pressures in the order of 35,000 pounds per square inch. These are acting on surfaces of the cartridge case, which are not much harder or much different than you might find in the soda can. This allows just huge amounts of information to be imprinted into the material of the cartridge case, allowing type and caliber determinations to occur, giving me a job.
Okay. Look forward to the actual discharge process. Can you describe what we see on slide 19?
Sure. So it is depicted that firing pin coming forward, slamming into the primer, initiating discharge. Once that bullet has moved to the...
Are they serious with this whole firearm bullet evaluation specialist class? The hell is this? What did this got to do with the evidence?
And at the tip of my finger, it is moving at the speed of a commercial jet, and it's rotating now at maybe 60,000 to 80,000 rotations per minute. So a great deal of energy has been released. The bullet's on its way out of the gun through the barrel, and pressure.
He said, so basically he's saying that something that's moving at the speed of a jet scraped a knuckle.
Pressure is slamming that cartridge cartridge case into the surfaces of the gun. This allows that firing pin to leave an impression. The firing pin aperture itself can be impressed into that primer with such a force that we can see the actual imprint, and also breech face markings. The small imperfections of that breech face can actually be impressed into the surface of the cartridge case, just as you would impress a fingerprint into a lump of clay.
Okay. This is an illustration that you have on in slide 19, correct?
Yes.
Did you put actual examples of these different components, the breech face, the apertures, in your presentation?
There are, yes, some exemplars. There's only one, I believe, that's related to this case. These images, such as the firearm you're seeing, are unrelated examples.
Okay. What specifically are you showing here in slide number 21?
So what you just saw was a gun that's slowly been disassembled to show you the internal parts that are going to be in contact with the cartridge during discharge. We're looking on the left side of the image. We're looking rearward at that breech face. This is the surface that will close off the back door of that barrel, the tube behind that live cartridge. The area, main area, is tinted blue there. That is the breech face surface. You look towards the center, you'll see a dotted line. I just added that dotted line around that opening. That opening is the actual firing pin aperture. And within the opening, you'll see an orangish, sort of elongated implement. That's the firing pin. On the right side of that diagram, you'll see an illustration of the types of marks that we'll talk about. The blue area, that circular area, is the primer. It's a soft metal where that explosion happens on the other.
So look, this part right here, this part could potentially be important if they had a gun, but y'all ain't got no gun that was on the scene that day, no gun you was claiming on the scene, so it's no point in showing all this. It's more a waste of time.
Marks from the breech face can come over. You'll see that dotted line outlining the firing pin aperture, and an actual impression into the material from the firing pin striking and causing discharge.
Okay, you said the illustration or the animation of the gun slowly being taken apart. I'm going to just go back so we can follow what you were showing. It goes by a little quickly, so I'm going to play it again.
Sure, so the top is a slide and barrel. Now I've taken the slide and the barrel apart. Here we're looking at the slide, which has that breech face surface within it.
Okay. I'm going to go on to slide number 22. Would you describe what you're
the squeeze bottle really jelly
illustrating here?
So a typical firearm identification task will often include what we call an actual microscopic comparison. I'll use an instrument to look at the tool marks on two items such as cartridge cases with the aim of trying to determine if they are fired by the same particular source. You could come to an opinion that they were fired by the same gun, or an opinion that they were not fired by the same gun, meaning they've been eliminated. That information is typically most useful when there is a gun in evidence. So here we just sort of depicted that there's a firearm. Test fires from that firearm can be compared to the two evidence cartridge cases connected with the dotted lines down there. The cartridge cases depicted in different colors are sort of just indicating that sometimes the features of those actual marks will be sort of an apples and oranges situation. And we can tell, even without looking at the microscopic markings, that they were fired from different guns.
You said what's displayed up here would be an identification that you can make if you had a gun to actually compare the fired cartridge cases to, correct?
That's when it's most useful? Yes.
If you hypothetically had received a gun in this case to compare to the two fired cartridge cases, could you determine scientifically if that particular gun that was provided to you was the one that fired these cartridges?
Get your try to kill me, and I'm gonna be itch. Bracelets out now.
I could perform a side-by-side microscopic comparison on a comparison microscope. If the marks are of sufficient quality, it may allow me to come to the opinion that, yes, the reason for the agreement of those marks is I'm of the opinion that they were fired in the same gun. Conversely, it could lead us to the opinion that they were not fired in the same gun.
That was my next question, was if you were provided, hypothetically, if you were provided a gun to compare to two fired cartridge cases, you could also definitively say, looking at these individual marks, that that gun was not used to fire those cartridge cases. Is that what you're saying? Is that correct?
Yes. There's identification, same gun. Elimination, they were not fired in the same gun. If there's any deficiencies with the items, we can just say inconclusive, meaning I can't give you any definitive opinion.
Okay. And that's if you have a gun. But if you don't have a gun, what are you looking at? In a case like this, or what you would call a no gun?
Right. So you can perform that comparison with two cartridge cases collected in the same area. But again, it does not tend to give you much additional information. What we will tend to do, if you just had two items collected at a crime scene, for instance, is perform what's called a type and caliber determination. So here we would be trying to characterize or describe types of guns which we know to produce marks, such as those that we see on the evidence.
Okay. Which gets into the analysis that you did the type and caliber, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Let's talk about caliber first, or how you do these types of analysis.
Right. So this is basically reiterating what I just discussed. So type and caliber, we're leaning towards trying to determine two different groups of information. First, the caliber, the specific type of ammunition, the size of ammunition that the unknown gun is intended to fire. And then we will actually look at the marks on the exhibit to see if we can begin to list some brands of firearms which we know to produce similar marks.
Okay, when you're looking at fired cartridge cases, is it difficult to determine what the caliber is?
Cartridge cases, it is not so difficult. They have a portion on the rear of the cartridge case surrounding that primer that typically has what we call a head stamp, meaning that the manufacturer has stamped in usually some identifying information about who made the cartridge, and also the caliber of firearm it's intended to be used with.
Okay. Moving on, can you describe the illustration you have here in slide 27?
Right, so this is just to get a sense of that type of caliber examination. Imagine that you have a clean kitchen floor and 30 seconds later you have a muddy footprint right in the middle of it. Something we're just instinctively going to do is look at the basic size of that footprint. At this point, we're probably going to narrow it down to some of your family members as opposed to others. You could look closer into that footprint, and if you see a particular design that is typical of a particular brand of shoe, this can further narrow sort of your list of suspects in your household. Type and caliber determination is essentially you're just doing that same process, but we're doing it using ammunition components, which is a little bit of a different exercise.
Okay. Just following your illustration of the muddy shoe print, are you saying that if you were to look at a muddy shoe print on the floor and see that it was a smaller size, you may eliminate that, oh, it was an adult that contributed to this footprint because it's too small to be an adult shoe, something like that?
Correct.
All right. And then if you have multiple children in your household, are you saying you could look at the pattern of the muddy footprint and say if my son wears Converse but my daughter wears Reeboks that you could eliminate one just based on the pattern that you see in the mud.
Right, and you're using patterns that are common to other Converse shoes out there. You aren't linking it to one particular shoe, but you're able to sort out this list of limited suspects.
So if you have 3 kids and 2 of them were Converse and one of them were Reeboks, you could eliminate the Reebok, but you wouldn't be able to distinguish between the 2 Converse. Is that?
Your Honor, I apologize for interrupting the state earlier, but the state can talk the ears off a donkey. This continued filibustering has got to stop.
You've narrowed it to 2 potential culprits and eliminated one.
Okay. Let's go on to talking about caliber with.
Okay, so caliber is another term that people pick up from movies and TV, but it has a specific meaning. So if you were to pick up a flashlight in one aisle of a store and a battery in another aisle, you are going to select the proper compatible items based on that size system. For instance, you're going to pick a AA battery. It allows you to match up the right battery with the right flashlight. Caliber is a similar system for ammunition. It's a matchmaking system that allows us to put the right ammunition into the right type of firearm. So saying a gun is of a particular caliber is like saying a battery is of a AA size.
Okay. Going on, are there common calibers that you see in your laboratory?
Yes, there are hundreds in existence, but most of the work that we actually see day to day will come from a relatively small grouping, maybe 20 to 24 different calibers that are commonly encountered in a crime lab.
Talk about caliber and talk about type. What do you mean when you say type in a type and caliber analysis?
That would be the right front. The right left, excuse me, the right left side. Front. Okay, all right.
Right, so it's kind of a vague term, but what we mean by type is that even when we're looking at these marks, even very simple implements like that firing pin are very carefully designed. That specific design may be common to a group of firearms, so by examining the imprint of particular features, we can begin to associate a mark with a group of firearm brands which we know to produce similar implements.
Can you describe the different, well, describe first what a class characteristic is and then what the different class characteristics are when you're talking about cartridge cases.
So a class characteristic is a feature which is going to be common not just to one item, but to a class or a group of items of a similar design. So a particular shape of firing pin may be common to firearm brands X, Y, and Z.
So the question is, did Relly pick up the bullets and put the mugs in his pocket? Because if he did, they are inadmissible. That's a fact. I see you, Prentice.
Group of X, Y, and Z is a smaller, more restricted group of the potential brands out there. When we do a type and caliber analysis, we're using these features. We call them class characteristics. When looking at a cartridge case, some of the most important class characteristics will be the caliber, the shape of that firing pin aperture, as well as the shape of the firing pin itself.
And again, the aperture is the hole that's in the breech face, correct?
Yes, it's like the donut hole in that breech face, and that actual shape can be impressed onto the discharge cartridge case.
And the firing pin is the piece that strikes the primer that, as it strikes it, it also leaves an imprint of the shape of the firing pin?
That's correct.
Okay. Can you talk about the class characteristics you see up here?
So this is just sort of illustrating that process of narrowing our candidates. So we begin with the caliber. At the bottom left, this is just an image of a cartridge from the laboratory. You'll see at the center that circle is the primer, and you'll see writing impressed into the outside of that primer. That's called a head.
Here we go again. Freaking what a bullet is 101 over here.
Headstand. It's placed there by the cartridge manufacturer. And simply by reading this headstand, also comparing the basic dimensions of that cartridge case, we can determine the caliber of the cartridge. So this particular one is a caliber called 9mm Luger.
Okay, the next class characteristic?
Again, to describe that hypothetical firing pin aperture, this is a laboratory gun. We're looking at that breech face. The dark circle in the center is that hole, the firing pin aperture. The firing pin is going to protrude from that hole upon discharge. And the shape of that hole may vary. Some of the shapes that we commonly run into will be round, which is pretty generic. A rectangular shape, or sometimes even a teardrop-shaped aperture.
Now, when you talk about caliber, to the right of the word caliber there's 5 boxes that each have a number and some letters below it. Are those common calibers of cartridge cases that you see?
Right, so this is just illustrating a hypothetical, but these are 5 different common calibers. They usually have a very specific name that can be shortened and placed onto a cartridge headstand.
So a fire cartridge that you'll see will have a caliber associated to it, correct?
Yes.
And then it will have the aperture shape, which will be is more than likely to be one of those 3 shapes that you have listed up there, correct?
Very commonly, yes.
Okay. Sorry. Can you describe what you're showing with this next illustration when it comes to the aperture shapes?
Yes, so at the bottom of this illustration, we have images of 3 different cartridge cases, and these have accepted that imprint of the aperture shape. So at the right-hand side of that image, you'll see a dotted line outlining a circular aperture. In the center, the dotted line is outlining that rectangular shape aperture. And at the left side of the image, you'll see the dotted line that's actually in a teardrop-shaped configuration. So these are just examples of the different shapes that we'll be assessing.
Each one of those 3 is a different example, just showing the different shapes that you can see in 3 different guns, correct?
Yeah.
And what did you do last summer? Like, who cares?
Okay. The last class characteristic you talked about was the firing pin shape. Can you describe that for the jury?
Sure. In the bottom right, this is actually a magnified image of a firing pin. It's about the size of the tip of a ballpoint pen. This particular one is round, or hemispherical. It's a very common shape of a firing pin. That round outline will then be imprinted into the cartridge that firing pin discharges. Again, there are different types that are commonly found to be manufactured by different brands. These, again, would be round, rectangular, and teardrop shaped. The aperture and firing pin shape do not have to match. So these different combinations give different classes their distinctive features.
So I just want to put a finer point on that. Just because the aperture of a firearm is round does not necessarily mean that the firing pin itself is also round. It can be a different shape.
Correct. It's up to the manufacturer, and they can combine those as they see fit.
Okay. All right. And then do you have examples of what those different firing pins looks like when you look at them in the laboratory?
Yes. So these are the same images. Here at the center, you'll see a depressed area that is then outlined with a solid yellow shape. So at the right side, you'll see that the outline of the actual firing pin that was pressed into the surface is round. In the center, it is rectangular. We may also call this elliptical. And on the left-hand side is a more distinctive shape, that actual teardrop shape that can be caused by the fire incandescent.
Okay. Go on now. You said you actually did an examination in this case of 2 fired cartridge cases, correct?
Correct.
What the hell is this? Evidence class, characteristics. Evidence 101.
You are assigned to do this type of analysis, a type and caliber analysis on fired cartridge cases. What's the first step that you take in the laboratory?
First step is to obtain the evidence.
Biggs, you're gone too far now, man. So that dealers. Biggs, you're gone too far now, man. So that dealers.
It's going to be actually stored with the property system. I'll go check out that evidence, bring it up, log it into our computer system, and perform an inventory of the evidence package.
In order to check the item out of evidence of property, how is it that you do that? Is there some number associated with it?
Yes, each investigation at LAPD receives a number. This has been called, for most of my career, a DR number. I think it means Division of Records number. This is simply a number that identifies a particular investigation. Evidence that's collected associated with that investigation will be filed under that DR.
In this case, was the DR number 2106-18784?
187. Chloe says, hit the like and get your very own really reliable brass knuckles. Great for walls, or great for punching walls, or stopping bullets. $19.99 plus $30 million shipping and handling. Grab them before they're gone.
May I refer to my notes?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, 2106-18783.
All right. When you went to property division, did you obtain the envelope that we see here that was previously marked People's 32? And let me just freeze that up there. Bring it to you if you need to inspect the envelope yourself.
Thank you. Yes, this is the envelope that I received.
Okay, and how is it that you recall that this was the specific envelope you received?
It bears the DR number as well as the number 1, meaning it is item number 1 booked to that DR number. On the back side of the envelope, it has my initials, my stylized initials, my serial number, as well as the date that I opened the package.
Okay, I see it. What I have frozen up on the screen there, is that the front side of the envelope?
Yes.
And putting up the back side, are these the initials that you were referring to?
Yes.
All right. Take out the smaller envelope. I'm going to show you the back side of the smaller envelope. You need to approach the tape's obscuring, let me know, but did you receive this smaller envelope as well when you did your examination?
Yes, it bears my stylized initials and information.
Are they up here just below the tape?
Yes, that's where I marked the envelope when I opened it.
Okay.
What up, Sapphire? I see you, buddy.
And lastly, you take the 2 items out of the smaller envelope.
They just don't care about gloves, huh? They don't wear gloves out there, I guess.
Here. approach with these, you tell us that these are the fired cartridge cases that you examined in this case.
Yes, their external features match the features that I documented. And there are also engravings on the inside of the actual cartridge case. When I receive evidence, I will engrave it with the item number, portion of that ER number, my initials, and serial number inside the mount of the case where it will not obscure it.
So that you know later that they're the same ones.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to put them back. Smaller envelope. Back in the larger envelope are People's 32. So after you received that envelope and those specific cartridge cases, what's the next step that you take in your examination process?
So the next step is going to be filling out some worksheets with the basic observations and features that are observable on those items. Both of these were booked as item 1, so I did designate one of the two as item 1A, the other as 1B. Then I documented the material and general features that we will systematically do in the opening stages of an examination.
Okay, and then the next step after documentation, what did you do?
So that point would just be to sort of classify those actual markings that were observed, the aperture shape, the firing pin shape, and these are just outlined in preparation for the interpretation part of the actual analysis.
Okay, so you talked about in your prior testimony looking for those 3 class characteristics: the aperture shape, the firing pin shape, and the caliber. Correct?
Yes, among others, but these are the most prominent and useful.
Okay. So is that what you're talking about when you look at them in the laboratory? You're documenting each one of those class characteristics?
Yes.
All right. So let me go back to your presentation here. Now you're going to start talking about the specifics of this case, correct?
Correct.
All right. Let's start with slide 40. Can you describe for the jury what we see here?
Yes, so the photo at the right side of this this slide is a digital image that is from the computer database system. This was, it's called NIBIN, N-I-B-I-N. This was taken before my actual analysis, but it's a good depiction of what I was looking at. In this picture, I've got the numbers 1, 2, and 3 there. So first, I've categorized the actual caliber. It is a 9 Luger caliber cartridge. Looking at the imprint on this of the aperture, I classified that as teardrop shaped. Looking closer into that actual depression in the primer, I classified the shape of the firing pin as also being teardrop shaped. So in the bottom left, there's a simple diagram outlining those features that I observed.
Okay. All right, let's go on to the next area. If you would describe sort of the value of the class characteristics that you observed, that information you just talked about.
Right. So now I'm beginning the interpretation stage of the examination. That first stage, here illustrated on the first line next to the one, is the determination of caliber. That was 9mm Luger. This is very common. In our lab, it's the most common caliber that we run into. So while that is interesting, it It narrows our pool of candidate firearms to some extent. It's still a very common feature. Down at line 2, I'm then going to move to begin to interpret what does the teardrop-shaped aperture mean. How does that allow me to further restrict the list of candidate sources?
Okay. Let's move on then. If you would talk about, after you document those 3 features, those 3 class characteristics, what's the next step that you took?
So at this stage, it becomes a bit of a research project. I'm using literature from my field in order to get the broadest list of known candidate sources with a teardrop-shaped firing pin aperture. The left side here is depicted just a couple of articles that I used. These are from the Journal of the Association of Firearm and Toolmark Examiners. This is a peer-reviewed journal that's been in print since 1968, I believe. A few of these articles started me down that
1968
path. There is also an electronic forum that's operated by AFTE. It's available to AFTE members, AFTE, Association of Firearm and Toolmark Examiners. This is an electronic exchange for professional examiners in a members area of the AFTE website. It allows them to interact and exchange information about new observations that they have in casework. And this is more responsive than the actual articles. We can disseminate information quicker by those means.
And these were the sources you used to kind of determine how big the pool was of potential candidates to compare to those 3 features.
Correct. I'm just looking for a list of suspect guns, if you will, brands which we know to include just that one feature, the teardrop-shaped firing pin aperture.
Okay. So specific to the firing pin aperture?
Correct.
All right. Let's move on. What was the next step you took?
The next resource I used is called the Class Characteristics Matrix. This is a developing database, also operated by AFTE. It allows me to just, you may enter different features, such as caliber and firing pin aperture shape. I did so in order to try to broaden that list of potential makes known to the community to produce teardrop-shaped firing pin apertures.
Okay. After looking at those resources, what did you determine was the potential list of firearm manufacturers that could have contributed to that aperture shape?
Right. So from all the manufacturers operating, the list that is known to me as a result of consulting these sources comes down to just a list of about 5 different manufacturers. So we've narrowed that candidate group considerably just using that one feature. These images there are logos or images depicting those 5 sources.
Okay, so you went from 9mm, very common source, to now whittling it down to 5 manufacturers, just with the aperture shape, correct?
That's right.
Okay. If you would talk about the kind of next step in your research project.
So moving from the aperture now to the actual firing pin. At this point, it becomes a little more challenging because the firing pin that I'm looking at in this case just happens to be quite distinctive. Fortunately, several months before the occurrence date of this case, I initiated a project where I collected samples from firearms that were coming through the firearm unit. We regularly test fire pistols that come into LAPD custody to be entered into the NIVIN database. I collected 229 different firearms examples, and these are specifically what we call ghost guns. It's a new sort of phenomena of firearms. By examining the samples from those this sample set, I was able to locate a few species that actually exhibited the firing pin consistent with the one that I observed in this case.
The teardrop shape, correct?
Teardrop shaped firing pin, correct.
Okay. And when you add that class characteristic to your analysis, so now you've gone from caliber, you've narrowed some out with the aperture shape, and now you've added in those that have the same aperture shape and this unique firing pin shape. What were you left with?
Right, so I'm left with the logo there you see on the left is not an actual manufacturer, it's just representing what we call ghost guns. So there's one particular aftermarket slide which is common to a particular frame size of ghost gun. That particular product exhibited the firing pin shape that I observed on the evidence. It also has some compatibility with frames that are produced by Glock.
Okay. Before we talk about ghost guns, you mentioned Niven. Would you describe for the jurors what that is and how you used it specifically in this case?
Sure. We may be more familiar with DNA databases. Samples from a crime scene may go into a database. Samples from suspects will also go into the database. The computer will attempt to match samples and potential suspects. We have a similar database in firearm identification. This is called NIBIN, National Integrated Ballistics Information Network. So when we have a group of evidence cartridge cases, such as the ones in this case, we can enter it into the system and attempt to look for potential matches among tens of thousands of candidates that are in that system. At the conclusion of my examination, I took the actual items that were previously imaged into the NIBIN system and had them correlated again. This means those images of our evidence were searched against the database again in order to see if I could find any other makes of firearms depicting that particular firing pin shape.
You described using the AFI resources, or the resources from your association of other tool mark examiners. Would NIBIN essentially have been kind of like a double check to your research that you did on the AFI resources?
Right, so the AFI resources, I'm trying to expand my list of possible candidates. I expanded that list, and those resources also told me what types of firing pins I expected to see. I didn't just take that at face value. I went, looked through NIBIN in order to attempt to confirm whether those resources were accurate. According to the samples that I looked at on this database, they were as advertised or published in those resources. Finally, I used NIBIN again as a second sort of double check, putting our actual evidence in and seeing if there are any other brands I'm unaware of that had similar marks.
Now let's talk about ghost guns. You used that term a couple times. If you would describe what a ghost gun is.
Sure. Well, this slide sort of depicts I guess, mainstream way of manufacturing and distributing firearms. So they're typically made by a licensed manufacturer, shipped to a retailer that has a federal firearms license, and they're sold to us in the public from that retailer. So that is how typical guns are distributed. I say guns of typical manufacturer as opposed to the species that are commonly referred to as ghost guns.
Okay, moving on to that. Can you describe what you are illustrating?
Chloe Albert's Revenge, you hear that? He said he had a ghost button.
Right, so the ghost gun species uses a frame. That is the portion you're going to grip. This is the part that needs to be serialized and controlled if it is manufactured and shipped to you, the consumer. Ghost guns use a product that is an incomplete frame. It requires you as the consumer to make just a few adjustments, drill a few holes in order to make that frame operational. You can order these over the internet. You can also order what's depicted there. The frame here is in that pink color. You're also going to need the other firing components, such as the slide and the barrel. These can also be ordered online. Then, using simple hand tools, as most of us would have in our garage, these aftermarket parts can be assembled and to produce a functional gun. Now, this gun does not have a serial number in that state, because when it was shipped, when the frame was shipped from that manufacturer, it was shipped in an unfinished condition, which did not require it to have a serial number. This is where the term ghost gun, I think, has taken hold, because it does not have that serial number that's known to law enforcement.
You talked about the three parts of the gun, and you said the pink part that you have illustrated up there is the frame. What are the other two parts? The gray rectangular shape on the top and the kind of orangish cylindrical piece underneath the pink part.
These are the main other components. Okay, so the pink part is that frame. That orange tubular shaped item is the barrel. That is where you load the cartridge, and that's where the bullet's actually going to travel, go towards the target. The gray object at the top of this image, that's the slide. It contains the breech face and the mechanism associated with the firing pin. Marks on the cartridge case are primarily coming from that component, the slide component of the firearm.
And are you illustrating that you can essentially purchase these individual pieces separately? So you could just buy a frame if you just wanted the frame?
Correct. You could buy the kit that can be used to produce a frame, and then the other components can be purchased separately from various retailers.
Okay. If you already have a working firearm, but you want to exchange a piece like the slide for the frame, can you do that by removing a piece and then adding an aftermarket piece?
Yes, you can. Just like my car has a license plate, it's licensed. I can change the rims on my car. I can buy aftermarket ones and slap it on there. That's what we're essentially allowed to do with these components of the gun.
What the hell is they talking about? Now I feel you. Now he should be objecting. Like, this is 403 now. What the hell is he talking about? Nobody care about all that.
Outside of the frame itself.
Okay. One. I think you already described they can be assembled using hand tools. What are you illustrating here in slide number 5?
So this just illustrates a couple actual products that are out there for privately made firearms is one of the terms the slang is ghost gun. These products show some tooling that can be used to actually complete the manufacture and make the kit, which is sold into a functional frame that can be joined with a aftermarket slide and used as firearm.
You said there's two brands that are illustrated up there. What are the two brands?
These are two very common brands. One is at the bottom center is Polymer 80 with the P80 logo. There is another brand, the firearm is marketed as an SS80, and that's depicted in the top right portion of the slide.
Okay. All right, moving on. Would you discuss kind of the manufacture or the features of some of these ghost guns?
Right, so this image is depicting the fact that these kits are produced to mimic a typical gun that's already in mainstream production. So there are two actual models here that are listed there. On the left-hand side, there's a SS80 is one. There's a PF9SS. That's another. These two particular ghost gun frames are compatible with a particular model of Glock, and that Glock is called a Glock 43. So they are made to be sort of imitation frames of that Glock, and they're compatible with those aftermarket parts which are also compatible with that particular model of mainstream manufactured Glock.
So when you were first explaining to us how, or kind of the origins of what a ghost gun is, you contrasted that to a gun that came from a licensed manufacturer. Am I stating that correctly?
Yes.
Would the Glock 43 being produced by the Glock firearm company, would that be what you're talking about as being produced by a mainstream licensed manufacturer?
Yes.
And the ones that you have listed here on the left, the Polymer 80 PF9SS and the Glock SOAR SS80, would those be the ghost gun versions of a Glock 43?
Correct. These are the privately made firearm or ghost gun versions of the frame of a Glock 43.
Made to mimic a Glock 43?
Yes.
Okay. All right. What are you illustrating here?
So here it showed one set of aftermarket parts just illustrated there. The markings I had found on these evidence items can be linked to a particular aftermarket slide. This particular aftermarket slide is known to be compatible with a few models of firearm frames. These include the Glock 43, 43X, on the left-hand side that's depicted by that dark black colored frame. On the right-hand side, the pink frame is representing the ghost gun equivalents of that Glock frame, which may be marketed as the SS80 or PF9SS.
Your explanation just now, you said the evidence items that you examined. Are you talking about these cartridge cases that were item 1 in that exhibit People's 32?
That's right.
Okay, and you're saying that the class characteristics that you saw on these cartridge cases, those three...
Wait a minute, what? What the hell? Hold on.
Characteristics that class cartridge cases that were item 1 in that exhibit People's 32?
That's right.
Okay, and you're saying that the class characteristics that you saw on these cartridge cases, those three characteristics, that it was 9mm, that it had a teardrop-shaped aperture, and a teardrop-shaped firing pin impression. Those are the characteristics you were using to narrow it down to these 4 types of firearms?
Yes, that grouping of class characteristics is known to me through those resources. I've only been able to associate it with this one particular aftermarket slide. And this aftermarket slide is compatible just with a few styles of guns. The known brands and models are listed there.
Those 4, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your finding, or the conclusion to your analysis. Have you summarized your conclusion on this slide, People's 59? Go back to...
Yes. Final conclusion. What you're not going to find in the report, I cannot say this configuration only comes from brand X. What we know is that after some considerable research, I can give you the list of candidates that we know to be consistent with these items. While these are consistent, we cannot really say that these are the only ones which will ever be manufactured with those general features. Due to that the qualifying term, but not limited to, always appears in type and caliber findings, such as the ones I produced here.
So why is it, again, that you put that qualifying statement in your analysis? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but you stated 9mm is a very common caliber, correct?
Yes.
But at the end of your type and caliber analysis, you really narrowed it down to those three features were only really typical of 4 different firearms that you have seen come through your laboratory, through your research on the AFI resources, and cross-comparing that with NIBIN. Am I stating that accurately?
Yes. Based on the research that I've described, I have only encountered empirical evidence showing me that this grouping of class characteristics exists as a consequence of that particular aftermarket slide. That's all the information that I could determine after some relatively considerable evidence.
But you don't limit it to just those 4 firearms, fair to say?
Correct. You can't state that it's those 4 and only those 4, because these class characteristics are voluntarily chosen by the manufacturers. They can change. It's also possible that there are other items out there that we have not run into. Any research material I use is finite. So for that reason, we include that qualifying mark to be overt.
But after your research in this area, you narrowed it to 4 that you, those 4 different firearms were the only that you could find that had those 3 class characteristics among them, correct?
Objection has an answer.
That's it. Thank you, Your Honor. That's correct. I'm only aware of the aftermarket product that's compatible with those 4 models.
Okay, that's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, we'll take a 15-minute break, folks. Please be outside the courtroom doors at, let's make it 3:20. Please don't discuss the case.
Well, family, guess that's it for them today. Let me move this big love bobblehead up off my mouth. Shout out to the stream sponsors of the day: Cat Knot Williams, FFS, Tac Clouds, Peter Ortiz with the $100 drop. Appreciate you, family. Cha Diggy, and of course, always Chan My Black is Golden. She the stream sponsor every night, so y'all already know that. Appreciate y'all. Let me see. That testimony was pointless though. That was a big old waste of time. I think that it's just all money moves. Like everybody just trying to use the taxpayer dollars, I guess. Cause ain't no point in them spending all that time and not proving nothing with no type of evidence. All he's saying is, oh yeah, this shell casing, it appears to be this type of like it was shot from this type of weapon and this type of that, but you don't have the weapon that it was shot from, so it don't matter. Like, what are you proving? But I don't know. Anyway, I appreciate y'all being here. Oh, look like they done for the day. They turned black on you. They got the black screen. That's what they do when they closing out. Shout out to everybody for being here. I did say I wanted to end early, so that's good. That's right on time. Appreciate y'all holding it down. What up, laugh always, have fun. I see you. Tac Clouds in the building. Appreciate you, family. No one. What up, though? With the new emoji. I see you. Jazzy T. What up? I see you. Appreciate you, family. Chloe Albert's Revenge with the jokes on deck. Always got the jokes on deck. And the super chat should be working. I turned it back on. Let's see who else up in here. Late Night Bacon with Mookie. Y'all go sub up. Show Late Night some love. Go check them out. Go check out No One for the fire music. You know, he always keep the fire music on deck. Dropped a new one. I think last night? I think he dropped a new one. Or it might be coming soon. I don't know if he dropped it yet. Young Forever, what up though? I see you. Appreciate y'all. Now I'm seeing doubles. Tat Clouds, Chan, my black is golden, says she love your jewelry. Yo, Tat Clouds, drop your link in the chat for everybody can see your jewelry. She says she love it. You got some good stuff. She makes jewelry also too, like that too. So I told y'all before, so we'll be having her link up there soon too. It's already out there though, but I don't know, we just haven't shared it. But appreciate y'all, family, spending this time with me. As you know, we back. Let me see. We're gonna have to get one more look at Ronnie O'Neal, because you know he showed some love and got us up out of there. Shout out to Ronnie O'Neal. Appreciate you, family.
The evidence is going to show that law enforcement and this administration wanted to make me look like a menace to society. But the evidence is going to show that anything that I may have said, they exacerbated it. The evidence is going to show. 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 I look alone, but I am backed by a mighty God. And the evidence is going to prove to you that this whole entire case has been tampered with and fabricated. Before it's all said and done, mark my words. That's what the evidence is going to show.
Yeah. Shout out one more time to the stream sponsors. Appreciate you all. Appreciate everybody for hanging out. All the likes, all the new subscribers, all the new members. Look like I'm pretty sure we hit the goal, so we should have some new emojis. It's only one more, but I gotta switch some up anyway. But appreciate y'all hanging out with your boy. And we will be back. Jazzy T said the GOAT is back. That's right. Appreciate y'all, family. Appreciate all the love and support. Until next time, we out. Peace out, family. Shout out to Reggie Righteous. Y'all go sub up. Fire music on deck. Sub up to No One. Fire music on deck. Sub up to Mookie. We out.
Chasing down my goals, I self-law am master, supernatural disaster, metaphysical reaction. I am the flesh, I am the God. No one got the lab on lockdown. Talking hot winters and cold summers. Black Force Ones when we slide in the streets. We all stay home at a club jumping. What up, cousin? I see you, fam. Throwing slime coins when I watch the trial. LEOs be capping, chatting action. Come and tap in the most interactive. I am the flesh. I am the God. I am the flesh. I am the God. Tap in, being on flesh skin, every rap in. If you like us, gon' get the lights up. You sub, you shall tell them pack in. From the left, right, front to the passenger side. It's right here, the premiere. How you know? Cause them boys broadcast to the live. Wanna talk about it? Hit the link right here. Slide coins up, got 100 bands. Martine's watch how the check. And the band made love to a bomber head. 2 bands do a dance like check. I'ma keep going till I'm motherfucking tired. You what? I'm motherfucking tired. Slide brother side, could we rain down game? Like, what you mean? Just watch the rise. Watch the rise. Watch the rise. I am the flesh. I am the God. I am the flesh. I am the God. Fleshly God. Bathsheba. 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 I am the flesh.